Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to have you here join us as part of Digital Hollywood. This is the panel, Music, Film, Arts, and Sports as Core to Creativity and Wellness. And I'm so excited to be the panelist moderator today. My name is Victoria Lanier. I'm the Executive Director for Education Through Music Los Angeles. And just very briefly, we restore music education back into schools, low-income area schools, as part of the core curriculum for every child. But I'm very excited to have a conversation about what music, film, arts, and sports means to ensuring that creativity and wellness are part of children's and teenagers' development and their health and wellness. With that, I'd love to briefly introduce everybody on today's panel. We've got Mia Johnson, who is the Arts Education Program Manager at the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture. Shannon McLemore, actor, writer, producer, and educator. Nadine Levitt, CEO and founder of Whirly EDU. Jonathan Franklin, Community Affairs and Engagement, LA Rams. Sergio Cuculiza, Executive Director and co-founder of Beautify Earth. Did I get that right? Okay, good. Manan Banta, who is a storyteller and founder of Mobile Film Classroom. So can we please welcome everybody? So just if we can quickly go down and in like Twitter-sized language, just briefly share what your program does. What do you do and what impact it has? Twitter size. Mia?
Starting with me?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
My name is Mia Johnson, and I work with the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture. Particularly, I'm focused on the Creative Careers Pathways for Youth program. It's an initiative born out of the Board of Supervisors Culture, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative.
I'm currently teaching at the New York Film Academy, focusing on high school students for international and national kind of acting studies, if you will.
Excellent.
And we use pop culture to make it easy to bring a fun and effective music program into schools, both through a content platform and creation tools for students.
We're trying to win a Super Bowl.
LA Rams.
Honestly, it's really using the power of
Rams
football
fan right here.
as we take it, providing hope where it doesn't exist while maintaining it where it does, reassuring that everyone can rise for prosperity. So really using the influence of sports and applying it to all communities.
Great.
We bring, Beautify Earth brings professional artists and murals and beautiful street art into campuses so that we can help create innovation and inspire students.
So Mobile Film Classroom works usually with kids 8 to 18 in school or in out-of-school workshops, and we take them through start to finish of the filmmaking process. I like to say now that like I'm a producer of kids movies, but I don't mean kids contents. I mean setting up the environment so that the kids can create their own stories, tell their own stories, and learn how to go from that idea to a finished, edited film.
Excellent. And very good on the Twitter size language. Excellent.
Grant writing.
So why do we exist? Like, why are your services needed? What current gaps do you see in the work that you're doing and in your communities? And we can go popcorn style, so please just if you feel compelled, and make sure your mic is close enough to you so that they can pick up on the video as well.
So, jump right in. There's a huge gap in schools in regards to all arts and activities, as probably everyone here can attest to. It's why we're here. It's why a lot of these forums exist. One big thing that I've started noticing since working with schools, because I'm not an educator. I've been educated in the arts, I'm an architect, but I've always found that education is the solution to every problem in the world. But when we go to schools, they lack inspiration. They're very bland. They're very gray, brown, whatever earth tone you want to pick, and it's not a good earth tone. And they lack this idea of inspiration. Motivation is found in so many different facets, through individual teachers, through parents, through college, through what you aspire to be, through sports figures, whatever it might be. But inspiration comes either from individuals or because someone is exposed to something. And schools should really begin to be that for students, because if they're not that for students, they might go home to a family that just isn't perfect, as none of us are, They might go home to a community that isn't perfect. They might go home to a community that sometimes it sucks. And they need that inspiration, and schools are just kind of that no-brainer as to why the inspiration should start there and begin there so that it can flourish into more.
So Sergio, can you speak a little bit more? Is it a gap in the resources for these arts products, materials, educators, instructors?
All the above,
All the above.
right? And it all starts with funding, and all funding starts with politics. And if you don't vote, there will be no funding for any of this stuff. And LA, the city of LA, the county of LA, hell, has an awful turnout for voting when it comes to local elections. Ironically, the ones that impact you the most. Your president barely impacts your life. Your council member impacts it quite a lot. It is 20% or less in LA that come out for voting, and that's awful.
Okay, thank you.
I agree a little. So just moving on from politics. So with politics, I think that we are massively underrepresented in the lobbying and advocacy and so on and so forth, particularly the arts and I think also sports. And I think within education, I think we've had the same structure for so long. And remember, it was designed way back when to meet the needs of the Industrial Revolution, and we don't need those skills anymore. And I think we still have this very traditional way of teaching. Here's a silo of math, here's a silo of English, here's a silo of science. And we don't live in silos. We have to get out of these silos that we're educating in. I think the representation, I think we need to take some sort of responsibility for that. If we want to be at the adult table with STEM subjects, for example, I think we need to build relationships and show how we can also augment what they're doing as well and make STEM subjects better. So I don't think it's I think there's many things that we can all do, but I think the biggest shift that I would like to see is just a reimagining of A, how we can work together, and B, how we can utilize content that's a little bit more exciting for kids and be a little bit more student-centric so that, for example, sports, all kids love sports. Well, at least when they're young. Like if it's games, right? If it's games. But if you make it like a drill thing and it's work, then it's different. Same thing with music. We talk to kids all the time. I talk to adults and say, how many of you love music? And they all put up their hand, and then I say, how many of you consider yourself musical? None of the hands are up. Or how many of you like music education? As soon as you put the education on the end of it, people stop caring. And I think we can use really interesting content that's already engaging for them and then further that learning.
Great.
I think to add on to your point, young people and young people of color particularly are one of the primary consumer markets for a lot of media and entertainment options that are there, but yet they have the least access. The gap exists between those who consume arts, media, and entertainment and those who actually have access to learn about those careers and to be able to start their careers early enough and to utilize their skills early enough to be able to go into programs or to be exposed to work-based learning opportunities. One of the things that we've noticed, particularly in a field scan that we did last year, we interviewed over 60 plus arts and entertainment and media executives who say that their doors are wide open to community youth, but yet community youth don't know that these doors are open. So it ends up becoming there are young people who desire careers in the arts and in entertainment, but they don't necessarily have the social capital to make those things come to fruition. But then we also have talented young people who do have access because they know someone or they go to the right school with the right program and their school is linked to a Warner Brothers. But then we have schools who are in the inner cities who don't have that access, literally don't have access, not even a bus line that would run to Hollywood. And so I think it ends up becoming almost like a digital divide of our time, in that, you know, we need to kind of inform, but also make more options available for families to encourage young people to go into careers in the arts and let them know that it's $1.6 billion of our economy here in California and that the creative economy is something that is always going to be there and has generated particularly a lot of dollars for Los Angeles County particularly.
And Mia, especially with the new cultural creative policy that you guys are coming out with,
Yes.
I think that's excellent. Do you want to speak briefly about that policy that you guys are working on?
Yes. Well, part of what we've done with the Board of Supervisors is a Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative. And this initiative was a 2-year process that really almost like 18-month process of convenings and talking to folks in the arts and social justice avenues, but they really wanted to see a cultural policy manifest from that. In addition to the Creative Careers Initiative, these two things are starting to intersect. So we're actually going to be I think the first arts organization in California, well, it could be nationwide, but definitely in California, to create a cultural policy for Los Angeles County. Not necessarily a plan, but really taking the opportunity to figure out how can we open our doors as county government to make it more accessible for people from all backgrounds to engage, encounter, and appreciate the arts equitably. So I think the question really just comes down to we need to demand and promote creativity, and we need to demand and promote equity. And so those two things together are primarily what we're focusing on.
Excellent. And it's what Sergio said earlier, if it's not even in school as part of the culture, kids who don't even know and parents who don't even know where to begin or even know that they have a creative bone in their body because they've never been exposed to it, how would they even then consider a career? So, yeah, let's hear from others of you.
Well, I would like to add on to what you have all said in that how we're teaching. I have to admit, after working in schools for 10 years, when it's during the school day, I got really pessimistic about the process. And then I went back to grad school I went back to an intensive for a semester and got to be a student again. And I realized, I trained in theater. I'm project-based. I'm hands-on learning. And what workshops like ours does with film that touches on so many different skill sets, the teamwork and being able to creatively solve problems and think critically. These are all very valuable across the board soft skills, career skills, whether you're going to be in the arts or not. But it also encompasses more learning types that I found out just recently, just doing that academic and having to do that whole theory. I was completely bored. I just wanted to be on my phone too. So when we got hands-on projects and we're doing real teamwork and brainstorming and all that, it was so engaging and exciting. And I think that's exactly the same for the kids. And being able, as your point of the divide, we primarily have worked with those students, and we've gotten to where we're working more and more with elementary age students, 3rd through 5th grade. They can do all that stuff, no problem. And their biggest issue usually is working in teams, and it's the same dynamics that we have as adults when we work in teams. But that's to give them that head start, because there are programs such as the Lucas Scholarship at USC and different things where the kids could have a pathway if they're interested, but they've got to find out that that's what they like to do.
But schools also don't always do the best job of telling kids that these opportunities exist. And I've seen it time and time again. I've been in 400 classrooms in the last 3.5 years. And I will say, it's shocking to me that whether or not a child goes to college is really decided for them by the time they enter kindergarten. And so I've seen a lot of kids who basically went to go and fill out forms, and people say, you're not going to college, don't worry about it, you're fine. And those people, I feel like there needs to be more discussion about how we across the board, across districts, across states, provide those opportunities both within schools, but then when schools aren't necessarily run the right way, or in terms of the support it provides, I think there should be also external sort of opportunities that are really marketed out there. And I think media is a huge way of doing it, because as you say, people are watching the media. And so if you can tie it in somehow to those opportunities. If you're watching football and they say, hey, by the way, for any kids who are interested in doing XYZ, let's, we're meeting at just send in this application form here.
Because you can catch kids anywhere they're at, and I think it's so exciting that you guys are all doing that work. And Jonathan, you're in Inglewood with the Rams, and do you want to speak about some of the things that you're seeing in that district and what your activities might be?
Definitely. And the unique thing about our organization is we're here just to have an impact, and I think that we have a great owner that allows us to do that. When we first arrived in 2016, we went on what is called listening tours with various school districts, community, nonprofits, and beyond, and just understanding what was the need, what are the issues. So one, we can be authentic and really strategically create a plan to have that impact. And within just various school districts, you can imagine how diverse those issues came upon, but regardless of what these socio-economic communities may look like, we can still provide and become a resource for them. That's from funding a debate team in South LA schools. It's having career chats at different schools as well. We have a Play 60 program where we're in touch over 100,000 youth, just teaching about how to be active for 60 minutes. Even we've been involved in what is the Ventura Correctional Facility, and that's for young adults 18 to 24 years old, just teaching character education. And being able to just create experiences and not just bring in youth to our games, but how can we really deliver the message of finding the best version of you? And being an organization that we are, everyone wants to open the door. And we've really been strategic of being authentic and unique in that regards, and raising the awareness beyond just football, but what do you want to do in your life, and who can you become as well? It's not just about football, but it's understanding even the transferable life skills that you can gain in football. So every opportunity that we can to promote impact, those transformational skills, we work to really take advantage of.
Shannon, anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's so great about sports and about arts in general, with everything, it gives young people, young adults, a voice where normally they wouldn't have one. I know I didn't know who I was until I started to pursue acting. I'm like, here, this is me, this is what I'm passionate about. And I actually didn't even fully understand it until I started to have to teach it. And then I became even more impassioned, and I saw more vision for the future, where this world, where our community can go. And just to touch on one thing, just the reason why I do love acting so much is, maybe unlike popular opinion of actors, it actually teaches empathy. To be able to see another circumstance outside of your own, to see another world outside what you grew up in, what you thought was truth. You could now see something else beyond that. And when one of the great things about teaching, I actually teach young kids as well as high school students at the New York Film Academy, we're bringing people together from all over the world. I taught children from Morocco and Turkey and France and Bolivia and Mexico, South America, Canada, you name the country. I've taught students from that country, along with maybe a third of the classes from the United States, but from all over the United States, small towns, big cities, New York. And it's just wonderful seeing all of these children come together to become friends, speaking in different languages and having jokes with one another, and then having that discipline, doing scenes together, and also teaching that applicable thing of like, this is now, what are you going to do? And I personally have this viewpoint that I think that the greatest tool any artist or any individual can have is your imagination. So if we don't open up the imagination for young kids at that age, how do they even know what they're capable of? So that's where I'm just like, the arts and from sports, with the discipline it teaches, that kind of saying, put thought into action, how are you going to make it happen, I just think is crucial. And the idea of taking that away from a young child, I find very regrettable.
Well, that's why we're here, and that's the work that we're all doing in our big and small ways. And given that educational institutions, they may need an external force to come in and say, hey, look what we can achieve together. How do we continue to build a culture that embraces music, film, arts, sports as foundational to education? From your standpoint, your perspective, how do we continue to ensure that this is the culture that we are building together?
I think, sorry. Do you want to go
I
first?
think Sergio, you all kind of jumped at the same time.
No, it's okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to talk about how there's a lot of common practice in education, and if you can't assess a subject matter, it typically is the subject matter that's going to be the first to get cut, for example. Also, a lot of arts programs, music, sports, they tend to also run on grants, right? A lot of things that it's not only about winning the grant, it's about refiling for the grant. It's about having people to be able to write the grant. There's a lot of these different components, and what you're doing is you're putting a mountain in front of people that want to make change and want to do something positive for everybody. And the real question is why. That change has to happen systemically. If that doesn't happen systemically, it will never get to where it needs to go.
And or even why is there that process, whereas, you know, with other core subjects, we're not saying it's an option to do math or reading or science, but that arts and sports are part of a well-rounded experience and part of a child's development.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also required now that there's a year-long.
It's mandated.
Sequential.
It's mandated, yeah.
For Cal State and CU or UC schools. Oh, I don't see where that's happening across the board. There is a very small proportion of credentialed arts teachers throughout the state. And with the grant funding of the arts organizations that want to come in and supplement, but we have an opportunity to give kids a taste. But then most of the time it's a one-off. It's hard to keep a sustained or sequential program funded. So what we've been doing is, when we do have the one workshop, is try as much as we can to partner with the teacher and have a day where the principal commits to having a substitute for that teacher, so we can do a one-on-one training with them, or one-on-one or multiple people day training with them, so they're starting to get the skills, and then it's tied into the curriculum.
It becomes more intrinsic.
Because
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the teachers can't incorporate it more regularly themselves, then it's going to be the shot approach.
So Mia or
Yeah.
Nadine?
I was just going to say, I think it's you can absolutely assess, you know, artistic sort of success in certain ways, and there are ways to, for example, is it just attendance? Is it the interventions that are needed? Is it elsewhere in the school? Is it how it supports other subjects, perhaps too? And then there's the actual skill development that I think you can absolutely give a real grade to that. But I think what's been interesting in just my time in the last few years, sort of seeing what I've noticed is project-based learning can't really exist without some form of the arts in it. So you cannot have, like, there's no company, like you talk about STEM subjects, you can't have a world of just STEM. The arts have to design it, the arts have to, you know, create, like, so there's a lot of big, and there
Marketing,
are a lot of big,
design,
there's
yeah.
a huge piece of this that we're just so integrated. But I think that when you look at how many people industry has funded so much education, like STEM, there's billions and billions of dollars that have gone into the development of STEM curriculum and the training of teachers and the assessment of STEM. And I think it is true. I mean, we do need to know these skills. They're all around us, science, technology, engineering, math, and so are the arts. But I think that a big problem that I really see is just that we're not speaking to the same people. We're speaking, like, and I notice this in the arts world all the time, and music educators are talking to music educators or other supporters who are big arts educators, but they're not talking to the people who have been spending billions and billions of dollars on STEM. We should be saying, hey, what do you need? We know we can support that. We can prove it, but let's design it out. And I think those conversations
The
need to be had.
cross-sector.
Yeah, and I mean, probably every single person here has been funded either by a governmental entity, a corporation, or local money, right? That's basically how we function. And, you know, corporations want to help. They're out there to help. The problem is that you got to get to them more than they come to you, more often than not. They don't all do these tours that sounds awesome. And, you know, it's going back to how there are a lot of schools that don't have access to these things. There's also a lot of programs that don't have access to the right ears, right, or aren't speaking to the right ears. Those are two problems, and they both have to be solved in order to get to the best solution. Because one being solved helps a little bit here, and the other one helps a little over there. but they need to come unified to help. I really actually believe that programs are a way forward for education and how they can start going into schools and being more integrated into them to complete projects, right? When you complete a project, you're not only teaching and assessing something, but you're also completing something. And when you complete something, there's that sense of achievement, that sense of award. And now that tends to create inspiration, that tends to pass that along to a lot of different systems.
Yeah, Mia?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, they've all said how, the arts are really a primary component of the growth and development of young people, particularly any human being. But I think that what's interesting is that there are these gaps, but it does start sometimes in the home, and it does start in K through 12 or K through 6, for example. Arts integration is a key component that we've been trying to encourage school districts to use. And so I think we currently fund approximately 77 school districts in Los Angeles County, and we actually...
That's awesome. You guys are awesome. Out of 80.
Yeah, but although it comes with its challenges, we actually have strategic planning consultants who come in and help the school districts. They work with their arts coordinators, and they help the school districts to come up with a strategic plan for arts education. They can demonstrate how you can get the most bang for your buck. I mean, it is a smaller grant, but there's a lot of ways to improve access for everyone. But then also, to your point, it's an equity issue. Although, it's mandated by the state that every child has arts education, it's not every child every day the way that it should be.
Right.
And then there are issues that exist kind of from a different layer of that, and that is when you get into the high schools, there's a little bit less of an integration, but more of a choice. And so, who are the young people being recruited into arts education programs?
Right.
Are there enough exploratory programs that take kids out of their own element to see a play or a musical, or to take them to a media company and watch films? But I was going to say to the point about the sports. The funny thing about sports is that when young people are at an age where they see the NFL, basketball, they see themselves in those positions. They can say, I want to do that. But what they don't see are the folks like the guy behind the camera over there. They don't see, those types of creative careers that we call below the line that don't necessarily get that recognition, but yet fuel the opportunity for you to watch a sporting event, right?
The whole ecosystem of people working to make.
It's not exposed to them. There's no information available to them about these careers, the money-making potential, and how to actually get prepared for those careers. So it is our job, in some degree, as education, but also government, to do this public will campaign, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do. We launched a campaign earlier this year called Create California, and the idea is to mobilize and energize, people all over Los Angeles County about the importance of creativity. And it's not just about creativity for creativity's sake, but it's about advocacy and awareness about creativity in terms of career opportunities, in terms of the ability for young people to be more disciplined, to be more engaged in education, and all of those aspects.
And I love that the creator of that whole marketing design, it's Create California, but you can interchange it with Create
Create LA
Community,
County,
create Love,
Inglewood
create,
Unified,
yes.
whatever you want to add on to it.
It's brilliant. So if you haven't checked it out, hashtag Create CA.
And we're still refining the campaign, but overall, one of the things I wanted to also mention is that we're not just going into the schools anymore. We've actually now, we're working in all of the halls, juvenile halls and camps, all of the housing projects and JCCPA centers to be able to work with formerly and currently incarcerated young people to expose them to arts. And we just recently received a $750,000 grant to continue that work.
Congrats.
And it was also supported strongly after that with a board motion for us to continue that work as a criminal justice reform strategy. So it's about thinking out the box and really trying to be more equitable in arts
You
education.
know, in Philadelphia, actually, they've had a very they've had a program that's become very, very popular and had huge impact with it, where kids who are facing incarceration have the choice to enroll in an arts program, and they can either be incarcerated or enroll in this arts program, and it includes a mentor sort of piece to it. But I can get you the information. for
Yeah,
that.
and we're also working with
Very,
the
very cool.
Office of Youth Diversion, it's a longer name to it, but that's actually working with law enforcement to do just the same. So it's, unfortunately, law enforcement does have to do the referrals from first encounter with a young person. But there are a variety of programs that they can go into, and one of them would be the arts education realm. So we're working really hard to try to promote this idea, but we need folks like yourselves to really promote that as well. Because as government, we're seen as more the mandators sometimes, not as the partners at the table, trying to be creative in developing strategies for youth diversion. So.
Jonathan, did you have something to say? I think when she touched on the sports,
Right.
NFL, did you have anything
Yeah,
you wanted
definitely.
to comment on?
I think it's been really unique. One of our media partners is CBS2, KCAL 9. And what we have been doing is two programs that, one we launched this year, and we're going on our third year with another. But one of them is our Student and Teacher of the Month, where we'll have an all-school assembly at LAUSD schools, honoring teachers and honoring students. And this is aired on CBS2 and KCAL 9 throughout the day, but really talking about their journeys and just the great work that they're doing in school and using our platform to be able to do that. And the new segment that we just launched this year is the LA Rams Character Player of the Month. So essentially, it's a student athlete that is just doing great things in life, and not just on the football field, and really allowing them to be role models to their peers and through the power of sports, but really highlighting the transferable skills that you gain from playing this game of football. And from an education base, again, it's been really unique with our team, right? If it's partner up with Secretary of State Alex Padilla to go into schools and promote voter registration. I know we have a program called the Academic Challenge where we work with 10 LA schools, and essentially we have staff members that go out to each one of these schools and talk about their career paths. So it's not just going to the NFL or being a player, but exposing them to what's out there, how they can think beyond the box. But essentially, the school with the highest and most improved GPA will award $2,500 to. And then as we talk about the social justice piece, as I mentioned, we work with the Ventura Correctional Facility. So these are youth, both men and women, that are pretty much serving time. About a month ago, we partnered with an organization called Cafe Momentum. We took about 4 individuals that were serving time and allowed them to become waiters and waitresses that evening and just really serve individuals of the community, if that's in law or just influential individuals, to give these youth hope for when they transition back in society, they can believe in themselves and who they are. So what I'm trying to say is bigger than just sports. Our message is not, hey, we need you to be on our team, we want to draft you one day. These are our future leaders of society, and every opportunity that we have to enter a school, partner with a nonprofit, or even partner smart by bringing our resources to the school districts, we work to take advantage of. So yes, understanding it's not just about winning Super Bowls, it's not about selling tickets. We really want to be a resource for this community and implement change, because we're all a part of this.
And you bring up a very good point, and everyone actually keeps bringing up this point, is that everything is about instilling this creativity, instilling pride, instilling inspiration into the youth, right? Not everyone's going to become a cinematographer. Yeah. Not everyone's going to become an opera singer, right? Not everyone's going to become an actress or work in government or be a football athlete or be a muralist. The point is that all of this together is used to inspire students. It's used to inspire, hell, it inspires teachers and anyone who walks by these schools and interacts with these kids as well. And that's the most important part. Yep. I went to art school, and I have been fortunate enough to have learned art my entire life. So having a privileged background of art in my entire life, when I went to art school, there were 3/4 of the subjects there as majors that I'd never heard of. I'd never been exposed to. So how the hell, when someone has never taken an art class or taken one art class in their entire life, are they going to know about all of these creative fields that they can attend to, that they can get into? And I think it's being able to expand that circle by bringing programs in, by getting more, more people out, and getting also like schools and districts and politicians to listen, and parents to listen too. I think parents are a big component of this. You can start exposing you can start exploring all the different realms that students and other people can take across their life.
Yeah.
I actually really like, though, what you guys are doing, too, which is you have an opportunity to also say, hey, there are these different jobs, and exposing, whether it's teachers and making heroes out of them, or whether it's an athlete that's doing other things in their life, and sort of really, I think that's a great, using media to just sort of spread the word of these great positive things that are happening in the world, both just opportunities that are available and also just great things that people are doing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, because oftentimes as artists, we are creating, from a vision or an idea. So it's first, how do we inspire kids to have that vision? And then how do we build towards that? So the arts teaches that, and it's building left, right brain connections, the problem solving, empathy, so that we can ultimately be one together as a whole, well society. And so I guess in our closing minutes, it's what is the call to action? What's maybe one call to action you would give our society?
I think a lot of it's been touched on, whether going through the government route. I mean, ideally, it should be a thing where it is integrated into public education across the board. And unfortunately, right now, it is from these independent kind of companies coming into schools to make it accessible, to open up eyes. But I definitely feel like what's so great about us being here is that we're in Los Angeles, which is one of the art centers of the world. And the fact that it isn't or has not been accessible to everybody in this city is kind of crazy. So what can we do then within this city, within LA County, to then expand outside of LA County? So the idea of it being a balloon effect, the simple fact that you brought up Philadelphia, this is wonderful. So let's have it balloon out to more rural areas, but first having it be the Mecca here that it needs to be in education, and then see what else we can do from that point.
Yeah, how can we create a hub of connectedness? Because there is so much going on, but the geographical challenges of the city, we get together at these little conferences and we meet people like, oh, I didn't even know that. We're a grantee of the Department
Of Arts
of
and
your
Culture,
department.
Yeah, we
And,
recently changed
They
it.
changed it from LA County
Yeah, so-
Arts Commission to
gonna
LA
fumble
Department
over
of
there.
Arts and Culture, yeah.
But so I'm so happy to hear of the initiatives that are coming out of that. But getting connected to the industries that are, I know the guilds are interested in inclusivity, and I know that industries are, but there's the introductions
So it's
are
breaking
not
down
being
barriers.
facilitated.
So Manon, you're saying you really want to break down those barriers and
Yeah.
that digital divide that you talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. Our call to action, I think, really is, if we're going to try and get more representation and change the way that we think about education, then I would, similar to you, you're talking about programs coming in, I'm okay with industry taking a leading role in this and us working together. And I think it takes I do think that movement has started. I don't think we're already on the way there. But if we can connect industry with schools a little bit better, and I think Create California is doing a fantastic job of this, and provide those opportunities, and then aggregate a lot of the cool kind of projects that are happening. And then technology is really what we're going to be able to leverage in order to spread and scale.
Good.
So,
And I did see a hand. We'll take it quickly and then we'll finish up with the final panelist comments. Yes.
In regards to your call to action, I just brought a media screening cabinet to Inglewood, and I know that we're working with the RAMs are going to be. But the big question that I don't see being addressed at this conference is having screening in my head, because actually everybody's relationship to the school system has changed recently. I get automation, whether we like it or not, is forcing us to create the creative space. And need-based relationship with the school system because automation is repetition and memorization, which those jobs are disappearing. Truck driver, Uber, the checkout clerk, whatever you can think of, automation is removing our ability to function in society without the creative mind. And so, my question to you then is, what are you doing to not only make that the call to action, but preparing your new relationship to the school system? Because without putting creativity back into the classroom, art, and if you look up research, the median income for Hispanics and Blacks in 2035, zero. Because of automation. Whatever it is now, which is already dire, is bad.
Does anyone want to address?
I'll touch that actually with also
Very
a call
briefly,
to
we
action.
have 1 minute left.
So it's a big reason why we do what we do. That inspiration component in the schools, especially all of them that are missing it, it's basically all of them. That inspiration is something that needs to be triggered in not only students but parents, faculty, and so on and so forth. The curriculum, probably everyone here could dive into that one for a long time. That needs to change in a lot of different ways. But the first thing that we can start doing is inspiring by making a beautiful campus, by creating artwork that evokes something in you, that leads you to believe in yourself, that leads you to create something, that leads you to go out there and find something that now I can apply my mind to. There's so many programs that are accessible to so many students, and the sad thing is that it's not that hard. What's hard is getting the notion of what it is that I want to reach out to, building up the courage to do so, and then finding perhaps the right organization. It doesn't always have to be the right organization, but just finding an organization that you can touch base with that is aligned with your passions. So creating that inspiration in schools is what we thrive on, and we were started with the idea of doing something about your community. Our goal is to cure, at Beautify Earth, our goal is to cure blight and apathy. Every single one of you up here is doing that also in your own unique way, and that's the amazing part. And in order to do so, you need to take a stand in your community. You need to do something in your community. When someone is struggling with a door, you open the door. When someone throws a piece of trash, you pick it up, or you ask them, hey, excuse me, why did you drop that piece of trash? Art has a tendency to recreate that notion to where we have statistics that prove that people won't throw their trash on the ground, that people won't graffiti a wall.
And Sergio, just to take it back though to innovation and how do we help kids really be prepared for 21st century, things like automation. Yeah. So I think it's giving kids the skills and the mindset to be able to work within the 21st century learning skills. How can we prepare them? And I think this is all part of that. But sure,
Yeah.
Mia?
I was just going to add that two things. One, you're spot on. I was just in a room last week at a big, giant conference the name is eluding me, at the convention center, and that's all that they were talking about was AI and VR. And to be quite honest, yes, it is the wave of the future, but so are our young people. Our young people are on video games more than we could ever have imagined, and to be quite honest, those two things need to come together. So one of the things that we're doing, and to your point, is how do we get this thing going, is we're going to be convening educators, folks that prepare young people for the creative economy, but also arts and entertainment executives to have these conversations. We've gotten some really big wigs, if you will, behind our sales that are really saying this is what we want to support, philanthropists and the like, key partners who want to have these conversations moving forward. So we do plan to convene voices like yours to come together with a voice from, let's say, a Warner Brothers or a digital media company. One of the things what I think is really key is to really harness young people's attention right now, and that is in the gaming and animation fields. So schools like Noman, who teach nothing but visual effects and animation and gaming, they're placing 99.9% of their students into the industry. But to do just that, to go into the AI, the VR, the animation fields. And so we do need to start having these conversations, not to say that it's going to wipe the traditional visual and performing arts off the map, but to say that if we don't start having these conversations while young people are really attentive to digital media, we're going to lose that opportunity to gain those skills right now.
Thank you, Mia. And we have final comments if you want to
Yeah, I
relay
was-
one final comment.
I was just going to add to that. I think that there are a lot of people. There's definitely I agree with you, by the way. And I think in this day and age where things are AI and automation and robotics are taking out complete workforce, you also have to focus on how do we become more human, right? How do we teach our kids to be more human in a world that's more and more digital? And I think there are a lot of people who are thinking about that. Like Cassell is doing tremendous work on this. But it's one of the things, I don't know if you guys know Sir Ken Robinson, but he talks at length about the different parts of your brain and why certain subjects train one part versus another. And I think it's not that people aren't thinking about it. It's just very difficult, I think, to implement everything. And I think people don't always think about the consequences. So, for example, you put standards in place, and it might be well-intentioned, but then it has this flow-on effect. So I think that there are
Call to action.
yeah,
What would you say?
The call to action, honestly, is just to, if you're a parent, you should be going to your school and demanding and saying, what is your policy on social and emotional skill development? What is your skill on creativity? If you're a teacher, you should be saying, yes, here are my standards, and here's what I'm also doing on social and emotional learning, and like pointing it out. But I think in order to do it, everybody needs to start working together rather than against each other. And that's why I think project-based learning, working together collaboratively and with a social and emotional focus is key.
And diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to be part of the whole conversation also, because
Absolutely.
that's like going under the radar a little bit.
Any final call to actions?
I agree. It's emphasizing the youth, right? And essentially beginning with the end in mind, to your point. I'm excited that we're opening up a stadium, 398 acres, where we can provide jobs and opportunities for our youth, and really even having tours and exposing them to what's happening within SoFi Stadium and beyond in that entire lot. So we're going to work to do our due diligence of providing jobs and opportunities and staying connected to the youth. They are our future, ultimately, and it's important that we lay the foundation correctly and be more intentional so we can really make change.
Thank you so much to everybody for your participation today. Thank you to our panelists, Manon, Sergio, Jonathan, Nadine, Shannon, and Mia. Thank you so much. So let's go out there and let's connect. Thank you again. All right.